Hey guys, this is Rajan, and in today's video we're going to see the simple explanation of this chapter named Deep Water. It was written by William Douglas, and this chapter was taken from the author's book named Of Men and Mountains. Also want to let you know that this chapter is all about how the author conquered his fear of water after working really hard. It's genuinely an inspiring story, and I want you to stay focused during the explanation. So let's start. The poet begins the chapter by talking about his childhood experience with water and swimming. He says that the first time when he wanted to learn swimming, he was around 13 years old. And at that point, the best place to learn swimming was the YMCA pool, which was only 2 or 3 feet deep at the shallow end and around 9 feet deep in the middle. That was a much more safer option to learn swimming than the Yakima River, which wasn't the safest to swim in, and also the author's mother had warned him against it. But for the first time when the author went to the YMCA pool, his earlier terrible experience with water just came to his mind. Talking about the terrible experience, the poet says that when he was around 3 or 4 years old, his father took him to a beach in California, and despite having grabbed his father's hand there, the waves knocked him down. It was a very terrible experience for him, and now the same feeling has arrived looking at the YMCA pool, as the author says. But anyway, he gathered some confidence and started paddling with his water wings, looking at the other boys who were swimming there. One day when the author went to the YMCA pool when no one else was there, an 18-year-old boy came to author and just tossed him into the deep water of the pool. It was so terrible for the author that the 9 feet depth of the pool felt like 90 feet for him. The author was suffocating underwater. He tried to yell, bring his legs up, but couldn't do anything. At least he knew the strategy of coming up, which was to spring from the bottom of the pool and come like a cork to the surface. Then he can lie flat on water, strike his arms, thresh his legs to reach the edge of the pool and be safe. But he couldn't apply this to help himself at that situation because it was too terrible. He was terrified more than one can imagine with the deep water he was under. He was almost paralyzed, his throat was frozen, and he could just feel that he was still alive. When he actually touched the bottom with his feet, he thought that he would jump and would come out easily, but that didn't help either. He was also expecting that anyone might throw a rope, ladder, or water wings for his help, but there wasn't anything like that. He also tried to call for help, but as I said earlier, because his throat was like frozen, so he couldn't do much. Finally, the poet was able to come out from the water, and it was such a nightmare for him that it took him quite a few minutes to even feel that he is out of danger now. He then started vomiting beside the pool, obviously because of what his mind and body went through underwater at that situation. He went back home and cried in his bed. He couldn't even eat that night. The fear of that particular incident stayed in his mind for some days, and he never went to the pool again, especially the YMCA pool. A few years later, when he wanted to go to rivers like Taition, Bumping River, or any other lake, the old fear of water returned and his body just couldn't be in the position to swim. This continued for years. He even had to cancel all his fishing trips from the Deschutes River, Metolius River, and the Bumping Lake for his terror of water. Finally, he was like, let's overcome this fear of water no matter what. So he hired an instructor for that. The poet started going to the pool 5 times a week for practice. The instructor used to put a belt around the author's body, and that belt was connected to a rope. The instructor used to hold the end of the rope, and with that belt around the body, the poet started going back and forward in the pool. This was improving his balance and movement underwater. This practice continued for weeks, and it seemed to the author that with every practice session, he was getting a little better at handling that fear underwater. Then the instructor taught the author to inhale and exhale during swimming. He showed the correct technique of exhaling from underwater and inhaling by raising the nose. The author practiced this thing also for multiple times a day, and he was feeling more and more comfortable day by day with practice. Even though at times that old fear of water used to return, but he still continued practicing hard to conquer that fear. The final step which the poet had to learn was to kick his legs underwater. At first, he felt like his legs are blocked, obviously because of his fear, but later on, with the guidance of his instructor and his practice, he was able to do that too. And eventually, after enough practice of everything, the instructor told him that he can swim now. And as he said, the poet was able to swim all around the swimming pool without any problem. But he wasn't satisfied with this. He was like, what if the old terror returns again when I am alone? So the poet went to Lake Wentworth in Hampshire, where he swam around 2 miles in the lake from Triggs Island to Stampeck Island. During this swimming journey, that old fear of water returned just once to the poet when he was in the middle of the lake, and instead of being panicked, he just laughed at it. Even then, he wasn't satisfied. So he went to the Maid Glacier and swam from one shore of a warm lake to the other. And during this, no fear was there. Then he shouted with joy that he has conquered his fear of water finally, and it was an awesome feeling for him, like a very, very special feeling. The poet then explained the importance of this journey for him. He believes what Roosevelt says, that there's terror only in the fear of death. Other than that death is peaceful. And that's what the story connects with as well, like how the poet loved the experience of fearless swimming, and that terror of water he had was just in his mind. So this was your chapter. I have tried to explain it in a very simple way, but if you still feel you have any confusion, then let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, take care.